Back on the topic of growth versus fixed mindset. And one of the quotes that really embodies this really well is that you cannot learn from a mistake if you deny that it ever happened or never occurred. And that's sort of a key factor, a key defining feature of a fixed mindset. And I'm going to get to that in a moment. But research actually suggests that the view that you adopt affects your outcomes. And they've had research where it comes to like optimism, realism, pessimism, a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm not going to get into some of that detail. But I will say that your outcomes are affected by the way you approach things, the filters you look through, and the mindset that you might foster. So somebody who has a fixed mindset will tend to believe that a quality is fixed, it's carved in stone, and it's something that creates this urgency to really prove yourself all the time. You're always going to feel like you need to live up to these things that you're carved in stone. Whereas if you have a growth mindset, you're believing that you can cultivate these skills, you can get better, you can evolve, you can adapt, and through practice you get to these qualities. So one is almost like a judgment on yourself and you have to live up to that judgment. Whereas the other one's like, okay, this is a process and this is something I can build and I can improve, right? So what that means is with a fixed mindset that you tend to look at things almost like a dichotomy, like two ends of a spectrum, that on and off switch that we've talked about so much. You know, you're either success or you're a failure. You're either smart or you're dumb. You're either accepted or you're rejected. You're either a winner or you're a loser. And it's a hard thing to maintain because you're always judging yourself and prejudging yourself even before you start. And that is not an effective long-term strategy. And this is why actually I like to praise people's work ethic and work, not their ability or their outcome. So, you know, if you're good at running, I'm going to more likely praise your attempt at getting more strength than running more. And that's not a judgment in any way, but when you're trying new things, you're developing new things instead of just focusing on what you're already good at, you're adopting a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. Somebody with a fixed mindset is going to stick to the things that they know they're good at, and they're not often going to challenge themselves, because if they challenge themselves, there's a potential that they might fail, they might look dumb, they might get rejected, they might be a loser, right? And that feeds into itself, and you almost get stuck into something and only doing what you're good at and never branching outside of that, and only ever putting up your hand in class when you know the answer. But one of my mentors once said, it's better to risk looking stupid one time than to remain stupid for their whole life. And maybe that was sort of a harsh way to look at it, maybe a little bit judgmental in a sense. But I think the ethos of that is that it's better to challenge your thought, learn, understand what you might not understand, and then succeed because of it, than just automatically assume you know what you're talking about and always be ignorant to what might be. So one, again, is fixed, it's carved in stone, versus potential, growth, change, right? So let's look at some common scenarios that might occur and how the two mindsets might look at this, right? So let's say you're presented with a challenge. You maybe want to sign up for a mud run, for example. Somebody with a fixed mindset might avoid it. Say, no, I don't want to do it because, maybe I won't be able to run the whole 5K, forget it, right? Whereas somebody who wants to challenge yourself, they have a growth mindset, they're going to embrace that challenge. They're going to take it on because, they might not do the best, but they know that they can grow and they get better. Now, let's say you're in a weight loss journey, you come up with an obstacle. You roll your ankle, let's say, right? Somebody with a fixed mindset says, I can't run anymore. I give up. I'm not going to do this anymore. Forget it. There's no point in continuing. I can't do exactly what I want to do. No sense in doing it at all. Whereas somebody with a growth mindset, okay, I'm going to persist. I know that maybe I can't run, but I can still cycle. I can still focus on my nutrition. I get my sleep in. I can still persist even though I've come up with this obstacle. And there's no judgment on themselves. So they will continue and they will persist and they will succeed because they have that growth mindset. Now let's say it comes to effort. You have to put a little bit of extra effort into something. Somebody with a fixed mindset might look at it as a resource and say, I don't have that much effort and time really to put into this. I don't know that I'm going to succeed, so I'm not going to bother doing it at all. They might have applied that effort if they knew that they would be able to do well with it, because it's a resource that they know that it'll be well spent. Whereas somebody with a growth mindset looks at it more of an investment. Like, I might not be the best runner ever, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try to get better, right? And then let's say there's feedback. You get criticized for something. Somebody with a fixed mindset, let's say they were doing a deadlift, for example, right? And they hear from their coach, maybe you're using your knees too much. Somebody who's got a fixed mindset will think, something's wrong with me. Why am I so dumb? Like, it's almost like they've judged their value because of what the criticism they heard, that feedback they heard, and then they might be giving up. Whereas somebody with a growth mindset, like, you know what, yeah, I'm just kind of feeling that a little bit weird. Oh, now this new way of doing it's better. I've learned something, and they're going to continue to grow. They're going to continue to move towards success because they've used that opportunity as a way to grow and to get better, rather than getting stuck and getting fixed where they are. And finally, when you look at the success of others, somebody with a fixed mindset might feel like that person's success comes at the cost of my success. It's almost like a threat, and they don't really appreciate that. And they might even become combative or competitive about it. Whereas somebody with a growth mindset might look at that person and say, you know what? I see that they're doing that thing. I want to learn what that is. Or they might be inspired. They might use them as a bright spot. So the growth mindset looks at somebody else's success as something of an inspiration, a motivation, as opposed to something to like compete against or shy away from. So all in all, what am I getting at? I want you to foster as much as possible a growth mindset. It might sound like an optimist versus a pessimist, but it's not. It's more about fixed means like you're stuck at where you're at, and if you get outside of that zone, there's opportunity that you might be valued, or judged, or anything negatively. You might fail, you might look dumb, you might get rejected, all that kind of stuff. But whereas somebody with a growth mindset always uses it as the process, as an opportunity, as an investment, and they're able to use scenarios to succeed and to get feedback and to grow. And that person with a fixed mindset might start off in a better position. They might be already doing better than most people, but they'll never do better than a person with a growth mindset. And that's somebody who's never had to do anything in their life to get to where they want, whereas somebody who has to have put in some effort. You can see it in the long run, the person that ends up winning. So here I am, one final time saying, let's foster that growth mindset.